From justice to legislation, law shapes our societies. In this lesson, we'll explore words that describe legal systems, rights, and responsibilities. With definitions, examples, and images, let's learn the language of the law. Attorney is noun. A lawyer, someone who is qualified and licensed to practice law and represent clients in legal proceedings. A person, typically a lawyer, legally appointed to act on behalf of another in legal matters. The attorney advised his client on the legal implications of the contract. The district attorney prosecuted the case against the accused. The attorney presented the defendant's case in court. They consulted with an attorney to draft their will and establish their estate plan. She hired an attorney to handle her divorce proceedings. Statute is noun. A formal written law enacted by a legislative body, such as a parliament or Congress, and enforced by the government. A rule or regulation established by an authority or organization to govern conduct or behavior within a specific context. Legal experts analyze the statute to determine its implications for individual rights and civil liberties. The company's code of conduct includes statutes regarding employee behavior and ethics in the workplace. The new statute imposed stricter penalties for environmental violations to protect natural resources. The City Council passed a statute prohibiting parking on certain streets during designated hours. The Constitution guarantees freedom of speech as a fundamental right that cannot be infringed upon by statute. Defendant as noun. A person, company, or institution against whom an action is brought in a court of law. In criminal law, the person accused of a crime and on trial. The defendant pleaded not guilty to the charges brought against him. The plaintiff accused the defendant of breach of contract. The defendant exercised his right to remain silent during the trial. The defendant's lawyer argued for the case to be dismissed due to lack of evidence. The defendant was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Law as verb. To impose or regulate by law. To enact, establish, or decree as a rule or principle. To take legal action against someone or something. To sue or prosecute according to the law. The City Council voted to law a curfew for minors in response to rising crime rates. The organization has vowed to law legal action against any instances of copyright infringement of their intellectual property. The company was fined for unlawfully disposing of hazardous waste in violation of environmental protection laws. The state legislature is currently debating whether to law a ban on single-use plastic bags to reduce plastic pollution. The government decided to law stricter regulations on environmental pollution to protect natural habitats. Constitution as noun. The fundamental principles or established precedents according to which a state or other organization is acknowledged to be governed. The physical makeup of an individual, especially with regard to the health, strength, and appearance of their body. The company's constitution outlines the rules and regulations governing its operations and decision-making processes. A strong constitution is essential for enduring the challenges of life. The United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land, outlining the structure of the federal government and protecting the rights of its citizens. The athlete's robust constitution enabled him to excel in extreme sports. The committee is drafting a new constitution to modernize the organization's governance framework. Regulation as noun. A rule or directive made and maintained by an authority, a governing principle or directive. The act of regulating or the state of being regulated. The regulations prohibit the use of certain chemicals in food production. Building codes are regulations that govern construction standards. Government regulations aim to ensure safety standards in the workplace. Environmental regulations restrict emissions from factories to protect air quality. The financial industry is subject to strict regulations to prevent fraud. Jurisdiction as noun. The extent or range of authority or control exercised by a legal body, court, or government agency. The official power to make legal decisions and judgments, especially in a specified area or over a particular group of people. The Supreme Court has appellate jurisdiction to review lower court decisions. International law governs issues that fall outside the jurisdiction of any single nation. The Tribal Council exercises jurisdiction over matters concerning tribal lands and members. The court has jurisdiction over cases involving federal law violations. The local police department has jurisdiction within city limits. Legal is adjective. Permitted by law, lawful, conforming to the law or to rules and regulations, relating to the law or its administration, concerning the system of rules recognized and enforced by society. The legal age for voting in many countries is 18 years old. It is essential to seek legal advice before signing any contract or agreement. The company faced legal action due to violations of environmental regulations. Hiring a legal advisor can help ensure that you comply with all relevant laws and regulations. The defendant had a legal right to a fair trial under the Constitution. Law is noun. A particular rule or principle within a system of law, a statute, ordinance, or regulation enacted by a legislative body. The system of rules, regulations, and principles recognized and enforced by a community or authority, governing behavior within a society and enforced by judicial institutions. Criminal law deals with offenses against the state, such as theft, assault, and murder. The judge cited a precedent established in a previous court case as a basis for his ruling, emphasizing the importance of upholding the rule of law. The law requires all businesses to pay taxes on their income. It is against the law to drive a vehicle without a valid driver's license. International law governs relations between sovereign states and regulates issues such as treaties, diplomacy, and armed conflict. Court as verb. To attempt to gain the favor or goodwill of someone, especially with a view to gaining their support or custom. To engage in social activities leading to marriage. The celebrity was courted by several fashion brands to be their brand ambassador. Politicians often spend a lot of time courting voters during election season. The team's manager has been courting talented players to join the roster for the upcoming season. The company's marketing team is actively courting potential investors for their new project. The university is courting top scholars with attractive research opportunities and funding. Plaintiff is noun. A person or entity who initiates a legal action or lawsuit against another party in a court of law, a party bringing a civil case before a court to seek redress for grievances or damages. The complainant or accuser in a legal dispute or lawsuit. The individual or entity that alleges wrongdoing or seeks legal remedy for harm or injury suffered. The plaintiff and the defendant reached a settlement agreement outside of court. The plaintiff filed a lawsuit against the landlord for breach of contract. The plaintiff in the case is seeking compensation for medical expenses and lost wages. The plaintiff accused the defendant of fraud and misrepresentation in the sale of the property. The plaintiff's attorney presented compelling arguments in support of their client's claims. Lawyer is noun. A person who is licensed to practice law and whose profession is to give legal advice and assistance to clients, represent them in court, and conduct legal proceedings on their behalf. A person who is skilled or knowledgeable in the principles and practices of law. My uncle is a successful lawyer specializing in corporate law. The defendant hired a team of experienced lawyers to defend him in court. The lawyer argued passionately for her client's innocence during the trial. She consulted with her lawyer before signing the contract to ensure she understood all the legal terms. Aspiring lawyers must pass the bar exam in order to practice law in their jurisdiction. Defendant as adjective, having to defend or answer to a charge, involving a legal defense. The defendant landlord was sued for negligence by the tenant. The defendant's spouse argued for joint custody of the children in the divorce proceedings. The defendant party filed a counterclaim against the plaintiff. The defendant driver claimed that the accident was not their fault. The defendant company hired a team of lawyers to represent them in court. Judiciary is noun, the branch of government responsible for interpreting and applying the law, typically through the court system. The judges or justices collectively who preside over courts of law. The independence of the judiciary is essential for ensuring fair and impartial justice. The judiciary is tasked with interpreting statutes and resolving disputes in accordance with legal principles. The judiciary comprises various levels of courts, including trial courts, appellate courts, and Supreme Courts. The appointment of judges to the judiciary is subject to rigorous scrutiny and confirmation processes. The judiciary plays a crucial role in upholding the rule of law in a democratic society. Trial is noun, a formal examination of evidence in a court of law by a judge or jury to determine guilt or innocence in a legal case. A test of the performance, qualities, or suitability of someone or something. A trial run or experiment. He faced trial for his alleged involvement in the crime. The defendant pleaded not guilty and opted for a trial by jury. The trial lasted for several weeks, with both sides presenting their arguments and evidence. The new software is being tested in a trial version before its official release. The drug is currently undergoing clinical trials to assess its effectiveness. Litigation as noun, the conduct of a lawsuit or legal proceeding. The process of taking legal action through the court system to resolve a dispute or claim. The litigation dragged on for years, causing financial strain and emotional stress for all involved. The attorney specialized in civil litigation, representing clients in various legal disputes. The insurance company hired a team of lawyers to handle the complex litigation arising from the accident. Both parties agreed to settle the matter out of court to avoid costly litigation. The company faced litigation from disgruntled customers who alleged false advertising. Court as noun, a tribunal presided over by a judge, judges, or a magistrate in civil and criminal cases. The place where such a tribunal meets, a courthouse. The lawyer argued passionately in court for her client's innocence. The judge's decision sent shockwaves through the legal community and sparked debate outside the court. The accused was brought before the court to face charges of embezzlement. The trial garnered significant media attention, with reporters flocking to the court to cover the proceedings. The case will be heard in federal court next month. Verdict as noun, a conclusion or opinion reached after careful consideration or deliberation. A formal decision or judgment made by a jury or judge at the conclusion of a trial or legal proceeding. After reviewing all the evidence, the judge delivered a verdict of not guilty due to lack of sufficient proof. The public awaited the verdict of the high-profile trial with bated breath. The jury deliberated for several hours before reaching a verdict of guilty. The verdict of the investigation confirmed the company's compliance with regulatory standards. The court's verdict was met with applause from the prosecution's supporters. Jurisprudence annune. The study and interpretation of law, especially the principles underlying the organization and operation of legal systems. The theory or philosophy of law. Legal scholars often delve into jurisprudence to understand the evolution of legal concepts and theories. The course on jurisprudence covers various schools of legal thought and their impact on contemporary legal systems. Jurisprudence provides the theoretical framework for analyzing and critiquing existing legal norms and institutions. The judge's decision was based on sound jurisprudence, taking into account legal precedents, statutory interpretation, and principles of equity. Studying jurisprudence is essential for aspiring lawyers, as it provides a deep understanding of the principles and theories underlying the legal system. Judiciary as adjective. Involving or concerned with legal proceedings or the administration of justice. Relating to the judicial branch of government or the courts. The judiciary process requires adherence to procedural rules and principles of fairness. The Judiciary Committee reviews nominees for judicial positions before their confirmation hearings. Judicial reforms were implemented to enhance the efficiency and transparency of the judiciary system. The judiciary branch of government oversees the interpretation and enforcement of laws. The judiciary functioned independently to ensure a fair trial for all parties involved. Legislation as noun. The act or process of making or enacting laws. The formal enactment of laws by a legislative body. The body of laws enacted by a legislative authority, statutes, rules, or regulations created by a government or governing body. The new legislation aims to improve consumer protection in the financial sector. Compliance with labor legislation is essential for businesses to avoid legal consequences. The government introduced legislation to address the issue of climate change. Lawmakers debated the proposed legislation before voting on its passage. The legislature passed landmark legislation to reform the healthcare system. Plaintiff as adjective. Involving or relating to a complainant or accuser in a legal dispute or lawsuit, characteristic of the role or status of the party bringing a civil action. Pertaining to or characteristic of a person who brings a case or lawsuit against another in a court of law, pertaining to the party initiating legal proceedings. The plaintiff witness provided crucial testimony in support of the case. The plaintiff attorney presented compelling evidence during the trial. The plaintiff party alleged breach of contract by the defendant company. The plaintiff argument centered around negligence on the part of the defendant. The plaintiff complaint outlined the damages suffered as a result of the defendant's actions. Level up your English. Master vocabulary, idioms, and phrasal verbs with fun quizzes. Translate meanings into 104 languages. Download now. Link in the description. Please like and subscribe to our channel.